They say the smallest sparks can ignite the quietest fires, not with a bang, but with a whisper that sneaks up on you when you're least expecting it. When the days blur into one another and you're just drifting through the hours, convinced the thrill of life has long since packed up and left without saying goodbye. That's precisely when it happens. A subtle tug at the edges of your world, pulling you towards something you didn't even know you were missing. For me, it began in the sun-dappled warmth of our sunroom, over a shared bite of something rich and forbidden. I was padding around in worn slippers, ponytail loose and fraying, sleeves pushed up on an old blouse, just another weary Wednesday folding into the haze of routine. The sort of afternoon that echoes the last dozen. Same chores, same hush hanging in the air, same version of myself staring back from the window's reflection, wondering where the spark went. But then he appeared. Alex, my stepson, home from university for a stretch, filling the empty weeks while his father, Michael, jetted off on another business trip. Nothing out of the ordinary, really. We'd always shared this easy rhythm, a shorthand understanding in a home where words often felt like optional extras. Yet that day, a shift hummed in the air, invisible but insistent. He propped himself against the doorframe, hands in his pockets, and grinned at me. Not the polite nod of obligation, but a real, lingering curve of his lips, as if he'd just rediscovered something worth savoring. Not the woman who'd nagged him about recycling bins or folded his laundry without complaint, but someone fresh, someone seen. I turned, holding out a forkful of the lemon tart I'd been perfecting, steam still curling from the flaky crust. Here, try this. Tell me if the zest cuts through the sweetness. His gaze held steady, unwavering, like the room had narrowed to just us and that glistening bite. He didn't reach for it. Instead, with a playful glint, he murmured, "Only if you do the honors, like a true artist unveiling her masterpiece." I chuckled, waving it off as banter, the kind we'd traded for years. But as I guided the fork toward him, he closed the distance, his mouth meeting the tines with a deliberate slowness that sent a shiver racing down my spine. His eyes never left mine, dark and intent, tasting more than pastry in that suspended breath. And right there, in the dappled light filtering through the blinds, I realized this wasn't about the recipe. It wasn't the tart or the afternoon lull. It was the electric pause between us, the way my pulse quickened and I didn't retreat. The way my fingers hovered near his chin, brushing air that suddenly felt charged. I should have laughed it away, busied myself with the dishes, shattered the fragile tension with a quip. But I didn't. Because buried under layers of routine, a fragment of me had been aching for disruption, for a crack in the numbness that had settled over my days like dust. This wasn't indulgence in sweets. It was riskier, rawer, the allure of the unsaid, the forbidden pull that made the ordinary hum with possibility. In that instant, as our stares locked, the floor seemed to tilt. The distant tick of the grandfather clock swelled to a roar, and my heart. God, it hadn't raced like that since I was young and foolish, chasing dreams instead of deadlines. Ever had one of those seconds that looks innocent from afar, but coils tight in your core, whispering warnings you pretend not to hear? That was us. And if you're picturing a tidy unraveling from here, hold on, because the unraveling? It's the part I still trace in the quiet hours, wondering if I'd rewind and douse the flame. Or fan it higher. I'm 44 now. Not ancient, not by any stretch, but somewhere along the line, I started fading into the background of my own story. It crept in gradually like ink bleeding across paper, subtle erasures until the vibrancy dulled to gray. Michael, my husband of 2 decades, is solid as they come. Steady job, bills paid on time. The reliable sort who'd fix a leaky faucet without a word of complaint. But presence? That's where he falters. Even under our roof, he's elsewhere, scrolling emails at the table, murmuring into his headset about quarterly reports, collapsing into bed with a sigh that signals lights out, conversation optional. We used to weave stories late into the night, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on my arm just because the mood struck. Now, we orbit like distant planets, backs turned in sleep, meals reduced to efficient exchanges over reheated leftovers. Weekends stretch like taffy, conversations clipped to logistics. Pass the salt? Meeting at 6? And in that vast quiet, I began questioning if my longing for more was the flaw, if this muted harmony was simply the shape of love worn smooth by time. Enter Alex, Michael's son from his first marriage, woven into our lives since he was a gangly kid with scraped knees and a gap-toothed grin. I was there for the milestones, coaching him through algebra nightmares, cheering at soccer sidelines, slipping midnight snacks under his door during heartbreak phases. But the Alex who bounded through our front door that summer, duffel slung over his shoulder, wasn't that wide-eyed boy anymore. He'd stretched into manhood, broad shoulders filling out his faded tees, voice carrying a gravelly depth, gaze sharpened by books and late-night debates that left him wiser than his 21 years. There was a poise to him now, a quiet magnetism that drew the eye without demanding it, laced with a thoughtful intensity that made you lean in to listen. He was crashing with us for the break, a casual pit stop before diving back into lectures and city lights. I didn't dwell on it, another chapter in our familiar script. Yet from the outset, a difference shimmered. He tuned in when I rambled about my day, not with distracted hums, but genuine pauses, questions that peeled back layers. What was the best part of that garden club meeting? He'd recall offhand details I'd tossed out weeks ago, the wildflower seeds I'd planted, the novel gathering dust on my nightstand, things Michael tuned out like static. He'd wander into the sunroom mid-morning, sleeves rolled up, offering to haul mulch bags or weed the flower beds without being asked. My dry anecdotes about quirky neighbors? He savored them, chuckling like they were punchlines from a private comedy. At first, I chalked it up to maturity, to the graciousness of a young man stepping into adulthood. But beneath that rationale, a deeper truth gnawed. I was parched for this brand of regard, and after years of thirst, even a sip felt like an ocean. The house breathed easier with him around. Corners that once echoed with solitude now hummed with his easy laughter, chasing shadows from the walls. I caught myself anticipating the creak of floorboards under his steps, the casual slump against the counter as he'd quip, "Room for one more sous chef?" Those pockets of time, just us, swapping tales over steaming mugs or debating spice levels in a simmering pot, felt like stolen sunlight. Harmless, utterly so. Yet a current ran underneath, faint but persistent, something I skirted naming but couldn't fully dismiss. It lived in the extra beat he'd hold after I finished a sentence, the sidelong glances when he thought I wasn't looking, the warmth blooming in my chest when our eyes snagged across the breakfast nook. Gentle as a breeze it was. But after eons of blending into the wallpaper, that whisper of notice roared like thunder. It was a Thursday, the light slanting amber through the sunroom windows, casting long shadows over the wicker table where I'd set up my baking station. Michael was away, as per usual, some conference in a sterile hotel ballroom, tie knotted tight against the world. Soft jazz murmured from the speakers, sleeves hiked as I folded butter into dough for a lemon tart, the citrus zing cutting through the buttery haze. It grounded me, this ritual of creation amid the drift. I was lost in the rhythm, humming a half-forgotten melody when the door swung open with a soft whoosh. Alex slipped in, silent as a shadow, leaning against the jamb with that relaxed poise. His expression was soft, intrigued, like he'd stumbled upon a hidden gallery. I glanced back, smirking. "You always materialize when citrus is in the air," he grinned, pushing off the frame. "Can you blame me? You've got a knack for turning ordinary afternoons into something tempting." I met his eyes then, steady, unblinking, framed by tousled waves that caught the glow. He wore a simple gray Henley, collar loose, but it was the weight in his stare that pinned me. I extended the fork, golden filling gleaming. "All right, critic. Verdict on the balance?" He didn't budge, just tilted his head with a teasing spark. "Make it authentic. Feed it to me, like you're revealing state secrets." A flicker of hesitation, gone in a heartbeat. I laughed it off, light and breezy. "Demanding, aren't we?" "Fine, Your Highness." He closed the gap unhurriedly, presence filling the space like a held note. I raised the fork and he leaned in, lips parting slow, deliberate against the cool metal. His eyes fluttered shut for a breath, savoring, then reopened, fixed on me. No trace of Jess now, just a quiet intensity that thickened the air. The taste lingered on the utensil, but what clung heavier was the aftermath. My laugh tumbling out too sharp, too quick, as I spun to the sink, water rushing to drown the tremor in my hands. I chided myself, silly flirtation, nothing more. Yet the sunroom shifted after that, walls pressing closer, every glance a potential echo. For the rest of the day, it replayed, the unyielding lock of his gaze, the statue still poised as if inviting me to voice the undercurrent we both sensed but left unnamed. That wasn't the impulsive spark of youth. It was measured knowing. And damn if a traitorous part of me didn't revel in it. I shouldn't have registy. Pause stretched, then I yielded, leaning to meet it. Our fingers brushed, deliberate, accidental, as sweetness bloomed on my tongue. But the mousse faded fast. What endured was the charged void after, breaths sinking in the hush. Hands hovered, unyielding. Eyes collided, a current arcing silent but seismic. No retreat. No words to shatter it. We teetered, awaiting the spell's fracture, a quip, a step back, a naming of the trespass. None came. In that vacuum, truth crystallized. Whatever boundary we'd towed, it had dissolved, leaving us adrift in uncharted warmth. 3 evenings on. The house slumbered under a velvet sky, Michael ensnared in a client soiree across state lines. I'd ceased logging his absences. I nestled in the study, tucked into the armchair's worn leather, throw draped over knees, a Merlot half-drained on the side table. The fireplace crackled low, flames licking logs, but my mind wandered labyrinths I dared not map. Alex entered soundlessly, settling on the ottoman nearer than decorum dictated. Proximity a promise, heat radiating like invitation unspoken. We lingered thus, firelight etching shadows on his jaw, then velvet soft. You seem distant tonight. Heavy somehow. Silence cloaked me briefly, then truth spilled. I feel like I've vanished. Like I'm here, but not going through motions, but unseen. He pivoted fully. Not by me. The conviction in it, not pity but anchor, unraveled me. I see you, he pressed nearer now, timbre a caress. More than most ever have. I searched his face. No boyish flicker, just resolute depth. The air thickened, breath hitching not from shock but recognition. A vigil ended. We held, statues on precipice's edge, the forbidden chasm yawning below. Flight should have been instinct, jest, diversion, retreat. Instead, I inclined, gravitational, and he mirrored, hesitant at the brink. Our lips met, featherlight, querying, and out-offered in its gentleness. I claimed it, deepening the press, warm, urgent, laced with tremor and trespass. Wrongness thrummed, yet cessation eluded. In that tangle, invisibility shattered, desired, vital, cherished. It crested brief, a stolen eternity before we parted. Gasps ragged. Reality's chill flooding in. I bolted upright, fleeing to the hall's dim embrace, door clicking shut behind. Back to wood, quaking, pulse a war drum, lips aflame, form alien in its awakening. Revulsion tangled with rapture, terror with triumph, shame with secret joy. Regret or revelation long overdue. Dawn brought evasion. Kitchen air crackled taut as I entered. Alex hunched over toast, gaze glued to crumbs like scripture. Hey, he muttered, eyes averted. I echoed, feigning normalcy, ignoring his flinch as I brushed past for the kettle. The rift gaped, meals mechanical, banter banished, touches taboo. He bolted postbite, leaving echoes. Michael returned midday, valise thumping, earpiece chattering fiscal jargon I'd tuned out eons prior. Peck to temple, perfunctory. My grin strained, unnoticed. He ghosted past Alex in the foyer, grunt of greeting his max. Normalcy? I armored in it, but fractures showed. Keys fumbled, queries repeated, mind snagged on velvet lips and fire glow. David, Alex, eschewed my orbit, a deliberate void. Evening found me in the laundry nook, sorting linens. His shadow loomed, words hovering. We should talk. Throat tight. Nothing left to say. He lingered, then withdrew, my dismissal ringing hollow. Brittle as bone. Days blurred to a family barbecue. Cousin's milestone. The gatherings I'd once savored for their clamor. I armored up. Sundress dusted off, makeup a mask, vows of levity etched deep. Alex arrived early, ensnared in orbit of a peer. Brunette. Vivacious. Her laughter a cascade as fingers grazed his sleeve. From the patio's fringe I observed, his tilt toward her, grin unshadowed, ease unburdened. Jealousy knifed, irrational and keen. Ridiculous, I berated, youth to youth, logic incarnate. Yet it rent me, had our ember signified? Fleeting folly for him, regretted whim? His nonchalance post-kiss gnawed. Did it haunt his nights as mine or evaporate like mist? Sundays brought fracture. Michael snored upstairs. Alex vanished to friends unprobed. I perched at the island, chamomile steaming, fridges drone a dirge. Solitude cracked me, not shatter, but seep, hands quivering, chest constricting, sobs rising unbidden from marrow's depths. Palms to face, I mourned the boundary breached, the yearning indulged, the self splintered. That conflagration replayed. Flames' dance, lips yield, aftermath's chill. Alex's absence since amplified it. What monster had I birthed? Stepmother to sentinel, protector to paramour, how? Yet Michael's neglect fueled retort. What union starves its core? What home renders one spectral? Doubt swirled, fabrication? Desperation alchemizing courtesy to craving? Perhaps his glances were kin, not kindle, comfort's cloak, not conquest. But no, the fork's pause, the study surge, those weren't mirage. They pulsed real, etched indelible. His intent? Enigma, tormenting. Confession tempted. Spill to Michael, raise the facade, inhale ruin's raw air. But devastation loomed. For him, Alex, the fragile me that had flickered alive, however illicit. Flight beckoned. Suitcase swift, horizon hazy, solitude to sift shards. Yet dread countered, if I'm sole ruminator? If to him, mere misstep, memory's footnote? That void aches fiercest, not error but erasure. Unworthy of recall, just ephemera exhaled. Ever towed an abyss, then queried its reality, or your secret wish to plunge. I dub it neither infidelity nor insurrection, but solitude's sigh. A soul parched for witness, for grays of choice over duty. Unplotted, it bloomed. Now its thorn twists not from act, but ambiguity's bite. So I pose to you, faulty or frail. Ever nursed a nonsensical blaze that sustained when all else dimmed? Affirm I'm not solitary in this tangle. I crave that lifeline. But threads demand weaving, not just unraveling. Weeks waned. Michael's trips multiplied, our dialogues dwindling to echoes. Alex's silences stretched, a chasm I both mourned and merited. One rain-lashed evening, storm-rattling panes, I found him on the back porch, drenched in thought, staring at sheets of silver. No preamble. I joined, shawl clutched against chill. We can't keep this. Buried, I ventured, voice threadbare. He turned, rain-beating lashes, expression a mosaic of regret and resolve. I know it was everything and nothing. I didn't mean to make you doubt yourself. Words tumbled then. Raw as the downpour. My invisibility's toll, the kiss as lifeline not lust. His own confusion, admiration twisted by proximity, youth's reckless pull. No blame, just bearing. You're not nothing to me, he said, fierce. But this? It can't be. Agreement settled, bittersweet. A pact to preserve what remained stepmother and stepson, boundaries redrawn in rain's wash. He returned to campus days later, hug brief but true, a chapter closed without casualty. Michael noticed the shift. My brighter laughs, bolder plans. A weekend getaway, unprompted. His hand in mine during a film, tentative but there. Not mended overnight, but mending. Conversations creeping past logistics, touches rediscovered like old keys. I enrolled in art classes, canvas splashed with colors long dormant. Friendships rekindled, roots delving deeper. The scar lingers, a faint line beneath skin, reminder of hunger's edge and healing's grace. Not every tale ties neat. Some scar, then soften, teaching that even in trespass, reclamation waits. And sometimes seeing oneself anew is the truest homecoming.